welcome back to theCUBE, here at our studio in the New York Stock Exchange. This is our Physical AI and Robotics series with NYSE Wired, where we talk to some of the builders and breakers who are reshaping the tech industry of tomorrow. Joining me now is Sviat Dulianinov, CEO of Bright Machines. Welcome, Sviat.
Thank you. It's actually really great to be back after 1 year.
Yeah, you were here just last year. So we were upstairs this morning at the Stock Exchange talking with A16Z about American dynamism and this idea of America really being future ready from the perspective of tech and the race for AI, right? Talk me about the role Bright Machines is playing in that future.
That's a great point, because I think like the first American Dynamism list, our company was also on this list for the reason. And if you look at the market and you're trying to protect and localize critical industries, we play a direct role in bringing manufacturing back to the US, and we focus on assembly of critical AI infrastructure and complex electronics. In this case, it's the computers, the servers and racks that go to data centers. So basically, we enable manufacturing that with robots, software, leveraging the data to improve designs and so on and so forth, and doing it in the United States.
Give me the baselines for Bright Machines from an investment perspective, size, scale.
Well, we closed Series C a few years ago. It was $120+ million in terms of like this round size. We will likely go to the market this year with Series D a little bit later. We are around 7.5-year-old company. We were founded in 2018. And right now we work with a number of really large leading companies. What's public is our partners and investors include, for example, NVIDIA and Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful credibility to have them on the cap table.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about, 2018 to now in terms of what we've seen happen in the world of tech and speed and agility. What you're doing is you're trying to really declog the pipes, speed up parts of the supply chain, in this kind of crazy world that we're in, which is really a race, right? A race to market.
Yep.
Give me some use cases and how Bright Machines is like working with OEMs and other customers and making things, bring it to life for me.
Yeah, I think 8 years ago when the company was started, the thesis was similar, but the market didn't realize yet how fast we would need to move and how dependent it might be on other regions. And then COVID happened, that showed the world that supply chain is really fragile. And after this, all the geopolitical conflicts, and right now the race to get more silicon into the data centers to be deployed and scale the speed of development of AI. We use all those years to build technology that enables to unlock that and be able to build complex electronics in any market that you want to do it. Not depending on labor, not depending on the skill of that labor, but leveraging software that is smart enough to tell robots how to assemble it and do it better and faster than humans. So that is the key unlock. What we also noticed, you mentioned like there were like several technological breakthroughs, right? Like we started initially deploying already AI. Back then it was like machine learning, and right now we can see new type of AI, and we also look at the, like how we integrate it into our operations, and we use several policies together, so we have different types of machine learning and AI deployed for our robots, and that brings you to, I think, the whole series that we call Physical AI. So I think what we can also see is right now the market understands the needs much better, and you can see leading players working with us to unlock and actually bring manufacturing of those complex AI systems that are really expensive to the US and different parts of the US versus historically depending on markets like Taiwan, Thailand, China, and others in Asia.
Well, let's talk about that complexity for a second, because it is a phenomenally complex space, I have no doubt. And there is a perception that suddenly these complexities have been broken open by certain sorts of technological developments, right? Talk me through, how you work with legacy players, especially in the OEM space, where their factory lines have been doing things a particular way for a very long time, scope out this opportunity for change and disruption, separate it out. Talk me through how that plays out.
I think the interesting thing is like why we focus on AI infrastructure is like the first reason was it is A, complex, but B, really expensive. And so these customers really focus a lot of attention of how it is produced, how to gain more efficiency, What's the yield, the quality of those items? Because imagine if you build an item that is like $250,000, it's very different from building a coffee maker that is like $200, right? That brings a perspective being open to innovation. And I guess that's why those companies are more flexible of reassessing their legacy supply chain or legacy operations. For example, if you historically used to build that, let's say with some manufacturer in China, and now you realize that this item is A, super expensive, B, there's a lot of IP in it, right? And then you start developing your own silicon. For example, if you're like a large company and can afford it, you also want to gradually control the production because this is so strategic for you, right? So in this case, you open up your eyes to innovation and trying new methods. So it becomes a little bit easier for a company like ours to convince or like to partner with them to work on a new way of building things. Versus like if you go to a standard coffee maker production, likely they would be less motivated to rethink it because it's a cheap item. It's not strategic. There's not a lot of IP. It just makes coffee. So maybe you keep producing this in China and so on and so forth. But
And in this scenario, are these customers coming to you with the vision of what they would like to see speed up? Are you actually providing some of the scoping exercise? What does the engagement look like if companies are working with Bright Machines?
I mean, we have our vision, and actually we share our vision how manufacturing should be right now and in the future. And those companies that are bought into this vision, they partner with us, and we start. I think there are like several things. First of all, we not only build stuff, manufacture, we also want to help with the design. So in ideal world, like we sit down with their design team and look at the next generation of the product, and our engineers, and we have a special simulation platform. We use that to give feedback how to improve the design of the future generation of the product, and then it's going to become easier to automate, higher quality, and faster time to market. And then we use our manufacturing capabilities, basically our manufacturing service, to start building it, introducing it to the line, and then building it. So it's not only manufacturing, but actually it should start at the design phase.
Wow. And how repeatable is this? Like you work with a company who has a factory in Mexico, they can also then plug and play that same improvement-based technology in Poland or in parts of Eastern Europe. Like how lift and shift are these models?
Technically, our initial market is and was the United States for obvious reasons. We're an American company. We want to bring manufacturing to the US. But like, can it go to other markets? The answer is yes. The technology is pretty scalable from the perspective of you're going to take the same technology stack, which is going to be the software layer, our platform, AI behind it that powers it. It's going to be data layer that we collect. It's going to be our robotic cells and lines together. So that you take this kind of manufacturing in a box and you just bring it to a new location, whatever the location is. And as I think I mentioned before we started this, the line should be flexible enough. So software and robotics and just the design should provide flexibility for what we call heterogeneous manufacturing, so where you could build multiple different items on the same line. And maybe just to give you another example, since we started with our previous model when we sold robots to the factory floor, right now we control it, but before that we deployed more than 130 microfactories or lines in different parts around the world. So that gives you an example of like it's scalable and it can be deployed, and we were deployed in countries like China, the US, Ireland, other European markets, even India, so like it could be anywhere.
Seems like it's also highly transferable into other industries too, like pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals, no, but like other electronics, manufacturing could be. Right now we focus on, as I mentioned, AI infrastructure, but like later it could be something adjacent. Or like, for example, if you have some devices with chips, like AI-powered cameras, or maybe telecommunication equipment like 5G boxes, that could be next use cases for us, potentially.
At the session we were both at this morning, we heard a lot about how complicated it can be to rewire or to, implement changes in a legacy supply chain, right? That sometimes it is actually cheaper and faster to just start to scratch. How do you see the world moving towards, a more kind of 2PL, 3PL model where they're going to work with outsourcers, companies like yours? Do you think this is going to be in the race for speed, the most tactical option?
Yeah, I think it's a really good observation. In many parts we go to old school company or business, it's really hard to change. Change is always hard. I think we could revisit the whole manufacturing space actually and try to think in a new way. So what we are bringing this year is going to be what we call edge manufacturing. imagine like before you could build a huge data center somewhere and half of the world could use it. Right now, each country is motivated to bring data centers inside their countries to localize it because it's strategic. It becomes AI becomes strategic for each nation. Why wouldn't you do the same with manufacturing, for example? So what we can do is like because of the technology, flexibility, speed, and robots, we can put manufacturing close to the space where the goods being manufactured are going to be used. So you can start building those microfactories, like we call it bright factory, close to, let's in our case, adjacent to data center or something like this. You need to rethink without depending on like legacy operations in Taiwan or China or Mexico, whatever. You could start from like, if I deploy it here, why don't I try to build it here as well? So I think it's maybe not building from scratch, but integrating into a wider ecosystem and leveraging the advantages of that, like energy, space, time to market because it's close and so on and so forth.
And what use cases have surprised you the most? Where have you seen the most activity that perhaps you didn't envision in 2018?
Well, in 2018 we didn't do servers.
Okay.
So initially we did different kinds of electronics like drills, coffee makers, smoke detectors, infotainment systems for cars. But with time we learned that, as I mentioned, the more complex and expensive the item that you're building is, the more companies are motivated to innovate and try new methods. So actually we're really lucky in a way because we've been building servers for like close to 5 years now before the whole AI boom and ChatGPT moment. And now we see that growing the fastest and like we're excited to be there.
Let's talk about the geopolitical side of this for a second. We heard a lot as well this morning about China and the threat that China poses to the US from a manufacturing perspective and across, I guess, many spaces. What are your thoughts on what we need to do here in the US over the next decade to really win that race? Like, what worries you the most about the position we're currently in?
I think, look, to be fair, China is really strong in manufacturing. They were strong with manual labor, and now they do deploy a lot of robots and software as well, so we shouldn't be delusional. I think the US needs to act really smart, in a smart way, because you cannot compete in everything, right? So you have to make a few bets and a few choices, and I think those choices should be strategic parts that the country wants to manufacture in-house, and then compete on that. For example, if it is defense or like aerospace, it should be built as capability in the US. If it is AI infrastructure that is strategic in this new world of AI, it should be built in the US. If it is, you mentioned pharmaceuticals, likely a lot of them should be also produced in the US. Not my sector, but like its strategic aspects. And if you think about other things like coffee makers and TVs, do you really need to localize it and build it here for the sake of like building a TV here? It's not that strategic, or like coffee maker, right? So maybe that you leave to Asian markets that are really good at it and cheaper, but you choose really critical strategic parts of like manufacturing that you bring here. And like just to add, like I think the government is trying to is like doing many things to support it. The current administration, I think they should just continue doing that, bringing those critical parts of manufacturing back to the US.
What was interesting too this morning was folks talked about the decision-making process state by state, right? This recce around, what it takes, permits, regulation, some of the administrative burden that comes with anything that involves physicality and capex investment, right? Talk me through what you've seen too from the perspective of the many clients you've worked with. Do you think there is kind of a state-to-state competition war here, and what would we need to change?
I think there are like a few things. First, there's like state level and permits and the speed at which you can move. I agree. The easier it is to move in the state, the faster you can build up a factory or production. There are like other incentives. For example, we, I think in Q3, Q4 last year, we got allocation for tax credits from Governor Newsom's office in California. That's a good incentive as well, but it doesn't solve the permit, for example, right? On the other hand, for most of the manufacturing, and especially in our case, there's also energy limitations. And China is bringing up a lot of energy every year, and the US is behind because of also regulation. I think nuclear is picking up now, but like it should be more solar, for example. But the problem is like solar is mostly panels built in China, and you tariff them and so on and so forth. But like this support of the government, not only with like permits, but also support of the government to those other industries that support the needs of manufacturing systems, plants, sites, like energy production.
Talk about the tech for a second. You're in a very interesting space. You're robotics, computer vision, software, all coming together under one roof, like the future in one unique spot. What are you seeing from a tech perspective? How are you seeing agentic and other models entering the kind of manufacturing workflows?
I think technology-wise, it depends on what kind of challenge or problem you're trying to solve. You hear a lot of news about several companies that are building general purpose models. In our case, the build-up of like the manufacturing of such a complex thing as like the modern AI server is not only complex, but it's also super precise. Like imagine 40 to 70 micron precision. It's like half of the human hair precision. For this, the general purpose models are not the best. So like you need to blend different technologies to have great results. That's what we are doing. As I mentioned, we do a lot of navigation, inspection, and force control. We use a lot of AI behind it to teach it and learn all the time. And we're going to continue doing that. At some point, we're going to, agentic, we're going to bring it maybe to our lines to work with data, for example, and so on and so forth. So with every year, we adopt the technology that is relevant for our space and consider others, but maybe not adopt because it's not good for our use case, because like use cases differ and you need different technology for different use cases for the best results.
How quickly, if a client comes on to work with you, can they see the impact, the output of a microfactory on their line?
Yeah.
Like what is a typical lead time from envision, designing to actual physical impact?
Great question. I'll give you a great example. So we put the first manufacturing site in our office actually, and we started end of last year. We started around September. Already in December, we already had a line, and right now in January, we're already producing AI servers from our San Francisco office. Wow. So that's pretty incredible speed of like September, October, November is like 3 months only to put up a line, and then there was holidays, like another few weeks to stand up operations and start building things.
And what's the magic to making that repeatable?
The magic is, well, first of all, a lot of experience, but of course, the technology, because that's the way we design it, the way we design the line, the way we help with the design the product, and all the software layer behind it that makes our robots, our system, flexible and smart. That brings, the precision, then thus the quality, the speed in throughput, yeah, that's the key sauce, the software. Software defined, smart automation unlocks that, because just standard automation, when you pre-program everything, would not be able to do that.
Wow. So Sviat, what's ahead for you and the team at Bright Machines? What does the next 12 months look like? What's on the product roadmap? This
year is supposed to be a huge year for us. As I mentioned, like this new running the full floor, providing manufacturing services as a concept of a bright factory. We're going to have a number of deployments this year, as I mentioned, in different parts of the country, maybe in some other countries, we'll see. More than that, we will do the fundraising. We'll go for Series D. So it's going to be a really busy year, both from the business perspective, also from a fundraising perspective. We're going to increase our team. We're going to deliver many lines and going to improve our product even further. Wow. Well, exciting times ahead. We'll certainly be watching here from the sidelines and hopefully maybe have you back at some point to keep us updated. Of course. Always happy to be back. Thanks so much for coming on theCUBE. Thank you. I'm Gemma Allen, here at our CUBE studio at the New York Stock Exchange. This is our Physical AI and Robotics series. Thanks so much for watching.